What's up, guys? My name is Brad, and I just want to talk about our podcast/Twitch setup. I had a lot of difficulties finding help on podcast setup. There's a lot of information out there. There's so many different routes to go. So I just want to show you guys what we decide on. It may not be the cheapest option, but it's probably one of the most versatile. Most people are probably familiar with the Shure SM7B microphones. That's what a lot of Twitch streamers use. They're very professional sounding, but they're about $400 each, and you have to have some kind of booster to lift the signal because their gain is so low. But Shure released the MV7 microphones, which is what we have, and they're both USB and XLR, so you can plug them in directly to your computer. So when we started our Twitch streams, we used to have two of those microphones that we would just run into USB into the computer, and that's how we would grab the sound. However, when we decided to upgrade our sound quality, we needed to put them into some kind of mixer, and that's when we decided on the Rode Procaster. The Rode Procaster is definitely not the cheapest mixer, but it allows you to not only record internally, but send the sound to your computer. It also allows someone to call into your podcast if you wanted, and you can capture that sound there. It has a built-in soundboard, and there's a lot of other qualities that make it beneficial for us. Could you get the same thing for less money? Probably, but the user-friendly part of the Rode Procaster made it so easy that anyone can figure it out. And in my opinion, saving hours of research to spend maybe only $100 more was worth it for me. There are two versions of the MV7 microphones, one that is USB and XLR, and another version that's just XLR. I would recommend, if you're going to get the Rode Procaster, to just get the XLR version because it's about $80 cheaper. I think the SM7B is $400, the MV7 with USB and XLR is like $250, and then the XLR version is $180. So obviously if you want a budget setup and you're already spending the money on a Rode Procaster, then you only need the XLR version. And that's why we decided to go with two new microphones that were just XLR so that we could have a 4-person podcast setup. Next, we have our camera up here for our podcast and the Twitch. Obviously, you need it for Twitch, but you don't necessarily need it for a podcast, but we like to take our podcasts and put them on YouTube afterwards. The camera that we have was an A7 III. It's just because we have an extra camera. You don't need this nice of a camera. I know a lot of people will use even an old A5100, which you can get completely refurb for like $600, which is still expensive. And then the least expensive option is just to use a really nice webcam. You can get a 4K webcam for around $150 if you need audio and video. The final thing that was important for our podcast in particular is I wanted it to be in our office space, but not feel like the entire office was dedicated to a podcast or a Twitch stream. So there's a lot of things that we did to minimize the area that it takes up. For example, all of the mics are on their stands and they're in the corners of the desk, meaning if someone wanted to work here, they just plug their computer monitor in right here. We put the keyboard, which is just sitting up there. They just put all that stuff back here and they can work. And then for setup, you just grab that stuff, move it back, and your podcast area is set up. Also, when it comes to the camera, you'll notice that it was on a mount. We can just turn that camera towards where we're sitting and it's ready to go. Essentially, it takes us less than 5 minutes to have the entire podcast or Twitch stream set up, which was important to me, but we still have this area as workable if someone needs a desk space. Again, there are much cheaper options out there for a podcast. However, for one that is professional sounding, I think this is probably one of the most budget friendly. Like I said, you can find a mixer that isn't this expensive, but this gives you the versatility to have call-in listeners, call-in viewers, or people that want to, take questions via the phone. It also has a soundboard built in that you can put your own sounds into. And then with the microphones, I think Rode actually makes a pod mic that's about $100, so that would save you, about $80 on each microphone. So you definitely could bring this down in price and set up an entire 4-person podcast setup for under $1,000. However, the Shure microphones just sound better to me, and I think that they're a better mic.
People just like, hey, I work out 5 times a week and my microphone's going to stay the same, and it just kind of is a wash.
I had a roll. We had our celebration dinner, so they bring you steak and a roll and a potato and all that good stuff.
As we've continued on with our podcast and I find it so enjoyable, I just wanted to invest in this hobby. And so I went with the Shure microphones. Again, there are cheaper options out there, so I'm definitely not telling you this is the cheapest way to set up a professional sounding podcast, but this is how we do it and what we find to be the easiest way to run this. Again, I hope this video helped you out. Like I said, I was researching and I felt like there's a million different mixers, a million different microphones that you can choose. So I just want to show you guys what we chose and the sound quality that goes with that. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below and we'll try to answer anything we can. There are way more expensive routes to take. There are cheaper routes to take, but I truly believe this is probably one of the easiest ones to set up. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button. Comment down below, like I said, if you have any questions. Share this with someone that you need to start a podcast with. Subscribe if you haven't. You're worth it.